I need to know, do you ever just feel real dehydrated? I don't know, strenuous exercise, heat the night before, you name it. But I know it's not just me out there. So boy, do I have an episode for you today. Hello, and welcome back to the E-Commerce Collective podcast brought to you by Flywheel. I am your host, Emma Irwin, and if you haven't put it together yet, today I am talking to one of my favorite brands, Liquid IV. In this episode, we'll cover how Liquid IV has grown up and really taken hold of its category in the digital sphere, and then we'll dig into strategies from this past Prime Day, which was just absolutely incredibly successful, and we'll look at how the brand looks at deal events as unique opportunities to be where the customer just needs them to be. Without further ado, let's meet our guest.
Aaron Jones. I'm the Vice President of E-Commerce and Media for both Liquid IV and the Health and Wellbeing Collective at Unilever.
I was curious to know how Aaron got to where he is and what his e-com journey has looked like thus far.
It's been a bit of a wild ride. I've been at Unilever now for about 6 years. So like I mentioned, I lead E-Commerce and Media for Liquid IV and the Health and Wellbeing Collective. I've been with Health and Wellbeing for about 3 years, and that's our not so small, not so secret new division of Unilever that really plays in the vitamins, minerals, supplements, functional hydration, and beauty from within categories, and has rapidly expanded to be a huge priority for Unilever. So it's been pretty awesome. It was a big leap of faith, and I'm excited to have been here from the beginning of the journey. I've been now with Liquid IV for just about a year and a quarter now as part of that. So I've had various roles within Unilever over the last 6 years, been over here on the West Coast for the last 3, but it's been a wild, wild ride.
Okay, so Liquid IV. I've got some background info just in case you're not as avid of a fan as I am. Founded in 2012 in LA, basically invented the category of powdered hydration. Liquid IV now owns 40% of the market share of this category. It's available quite literally all over the place, and it was even acquired by Unilever in 2020. All right, now that we're all on the same page here, we of course had to ask Aaron what the last thing he purchased online was before we could get into the meat of this episode.
Well, it was a pretty meaty purchase. I bought a shelf, and so it's like a very large shelf for my desk so that I could organize. My desk had gotten very cluttered in the last few years working from home so much. So yeah, I bought this massive shelf off of Wayfair, actually. And it's kind of a funny e-commerce purchase because I think, 10, 15 years ago, we wouldn't be talking about buying massive pieces of furniture online, but here we are. And I did. And I was very grateful that there was no assembly required and I did not have to spend multiple hours putting it together.
That is my kind of piece of furniture. The assembly is really something I struggle with the patience for.
Absolutely. Me too.
Now it's time to really dig in. We're going to start with the journey of the brand so far and what makes its e-commerce approach unique, and then we will move into deal event specifics. My first question here for Aaron was, what did the business look like when he first joined the Liquid IV brand? What were capabilities looking like, and what did he get to work on right away?
Well, I was very lucky and very grateful to be obviously with the company for some time before I stepped into Liquid IV specifically. And so I was very familiar with the brand and its journey. And Liquid IV was really born in digital. And so being a prevalent piece of the digital ecosystem was always a huge part of Liquid IV's strategy. And the really center of that ecosystem was liquidiv.com. And that was a big portion of our strategy and go to market just since day one. It was really, you ask anyone who's been there for much longer than I have, and they would tell you that liquidiv.com was really the backbone, what started it all. And that has taken on a very different meaning in our strategy now that we're in 2024. But the thing I'm most excited about and was most excited about when I joined was actually this new function that we created. And so e-commerce and media and the convergence of those two things was not a discrete function within Liquid IV until a year and a quarter ago when I joined. And the insight there was really probably not that interesting for folks who are in the industry every single day, but the convergence of e-commerce and media and the fact that, hey, it's no longer this linear long-term journey of, hey, I saw a billboard, a TV commercial here or there, and then maybe one day I walk into a grocery store and pick up Liquid IV. And, it's a very sequential, beautiful customer shopper journey. Now it's extremely scattered. Everything is almost shoppable. And this convergence of commerce and media is just everywhere. I even think about Amazon, for example, and the amount of investments they've made into the upper funnel arenas and spaces and what that means for shoppability. And then, of course, on the other side, you've got TikTok Shop, which is coming in and making things so easily commercialized as well. And so it was really important for us to merge these two functions together for faster decision making and also really objective measurement to determine how we are spending our next best dollar. So that was a learning journey on its own, to answer your question, right? Which is coming in, starting a new function and standing it up and doing things a little bit differently than things were done in the past, which is great. But it was really, really exciting.
Is there anything you can share? I'm kind of curious in mentioning like the start of it all is like liquidiv.com, which makes total sense. But then I know like Liquid IV is available across just a bazillion marketplaces. Do you have any kind of insights to share in terms of growing from the fully like D2C function and then out to other marketplaces and what you've kind of seen in doing that?
Yeah, well, it's funny, right? Like if you just take a step back and look at the industry of D2C, it's kind of a mixed bag, right? You see like a ton of public companies struggling. I would say probably more companies in D2C, at least on the public market, struggling than not in terms of D2C. And the truth is, it's tough out there. D2C is really only the strongest will survive on D2C. And it's really specific in terms of what products can have the right to win on D2C, especially in the face of a growing distribution brand like Liquid IV. And now, to your point, you're readily available everywhere. What does the future of your D2C platform look like? And that was a huge part of our learning journey over the last year and a half. And so we've really redefined our unique value proposition of D2C. And liquidiv.com is really now the hub of discovery, learning more about our brand, but also just catered to our like highest loyalist brand enthusiasts for Liquid IV. And so you'll notice a lot of things on liquidiv.com that just are experiences that cannot be replicated anywhere else. We've got this build your own bundle capability. We've got a lot of unique flavors, assortment that you could not get in every other retailer. We've invested heavily into our membership and subscription benefits as well. And so if you're a member of liquidiv.com, it's totally free. You get 2% cash back. You can redeem those points for anything. You get exclusive merch and swag and things that you just really can't see anywhere else. And that's really exciting to us. And that strategy has been very, very successful since we've really just carved out that reason to believe on liquidiv.com.
Got it. I was on liquidiv.com this morning, of course, and scrolling through because I was like, I know my favorite flavors, but let me see what other flavors I haven't tried. And then even within like the top navigation bar, there was a section about like gut health. And I was like, I didn't even know they made a product in regards to like gut health. And it's amazing. And it was just this moment of true discovery on there.
Well, I love that you just said that because it's funny. The problem and challenge that Liquid IV has too is we have so many products, flavors, hydration multiplier plus benefits. And it's because we're so dominant in the category, it can actually be very overwhelming if you're at a physical shelf and if you're on Amazon as well. I mean, probably the average consumer does not realize that we have the 30 plus flavors that we do. So it was a real challenge when we did our site refresh back in May. We relaunched our website. Like, what is the most ideal consumer journey and experience for digesting all of our different benefits, our lines, and then of course our flavors too. And so the fact that you just said that is music to my ears because it's a very visual shopping experience that we tried to spend a lot of time on.
All right, next up, I wanted to know more about what makes Liquid IV's approach to e-commerce unique.
So I'd start off by saying the culture of Liquid IV and specifically our team on the e-commerce and media side is really fostering a culture of speed over perfection and innovation. And I would also say, a healthy level of competitiveness as well that we constantly hold ourselves accountable for. So I would say, a lot of people on our team, and it's very organic, are very comfortable being uncomfortable. And we're not afraid to just like jump into something that we don't really quite fully understand yet, which which isn't something that all companies are willing to do. And, I use two examples. One, of course, we'll talk about, which is Amazon Prime Day, right? I mean, a lot of new stuff that we tried that no other CPG company had tried before, and it was really unproven. And we're very, very excited to jump in with Amazon and really execute on some cutting edge go-to-market technologies, which is really exciting. And then maybe another good example is TikTok Shop. It's like, hey, here's a growing platform that is not perfect. Not everything has been figured out. It's still growing. It's small. It's unknown, uncharted waters. And yet we know if the consumer is going to be there, we want to be there. And so we jumped on that very, very early and have had a lot of success as a result of being willing to roll up our sleeves and test something before others are.
Got it. Before I bring us into talking about Amazon Prime Day, I would love to kind of like level set and just hear your perspective on how you treat maybe an Amazon differently from D2C and like how you just look at it. I know Amazon, that is the platform I'm the most familiar with. And I think like we have an audience that heavily leans Amazon world, but would just kind of love to know your perspective for the brand on approaching Amazon versus D2C.
Yeah, well, Amazon's absolutely massive, at least in our categories and for our brands, it's absolutely the top priority for us. This is where the consumers already are. Like every piece of data shows that consumers are not looking to fragment their purchases further and further. They're looking to consolidate and have one shopping journey. And Amazon's everywhere. I think it's over 70% of households now have a Prime membership. It's absolutely massive. I mentioned it earlier, but not only are they a huge commerce hub, they're also a massive media hub, and they're our number one media investment channel as well as a result. And they have just so many pieces of IP that are just fantastic. So we think it's important, not just from the conversion angle and the commerce side of being where consumers want to shop, but also extremely important from the brand discovery side and being highly in touch with our consumers at every stage of, hey, the first time you even see our brand, hear of the category, all the way down to conversion on a PDP. So Amazon is just a huge part of our partnership with them. And so I can't speak highly enough about it.
And what you may or may not have been waiting for, we're going to get into what made Liquid IV's Prime Day 2024 so successful. Absolutely smash. Deal events, they're complicated. There's so much weighing on them, and there are just so many things that can go so wrong. There's the lead in strategy, the during strategy, the lead out strategy, and off the top of my head, the heat probably helped Liquid IV out in a summer deal event. So, what did Liquid IV do this past Prime Day to see such great results?
I think it starts with the mindset and the preparation for Prime Day and like why Prime Day. So let's start with that, right? And you mentioned big Prime Day for us. Yes, according to Numerator, we were the number 3 most sold product on the entirety of the platform, which is great in terms of units sold, which is really, really exciting for us. It is a key metric of success and shows, hey, this is a household brand and people are looking for us. It's funny, everybody wants to know, hey, what do you do on Prime Day to be successful? And very rarely do we have the conversation of like, hey, what about the other, 363 days of the year which lead up to Prime Day and put you in a position to succeed? We like to say Amazon is a really good litmus test for our brand's health in the broader market. And I said that earlier, over 70% of households have Prime memberships. Yeah, like that's national distribution and is a good sense and pulse of how your brand is resonating with consumers every single day. And so we really don't, we don't take that for granted. And we monitor Liquid IV searches as an indicator of brand health and where we're ranking. And fun fact, Liquid IV is consistently in the top 50 on Amazon in terms of search terms, like people literally going in and typing in Liquid IV. And that's something we're very, very proud of and we wear as a badge of honor. I like to say we're like the Kleenex of like tissue paper, right? People don't search for electrolytes at the same rate that they search for Liquid IV. They're looking for Liquid IV.
Heck yeah.
So that's pretty cool. It's really, for me, it's important to recognize that deal days, in many ways are about like capturing demand and like surfacing your brand amongst the jungle and making sure you're not like shooting yourself in the foot and losing all the demand that you're creating. And it sounds kind of boring, but it is like really, really, really important on like the operations side. And then of course, just being really dialed into the days. So the context for going into these 48 hours of Prime Day was we also had a killer Prime Day last year. And we were like, whoa, we knew we could do well, but I don't think we knew just how like high the ceiling was on that 48 hours a year ago. And so we went into this year and we were chatting with Amazon and we said, we got to do this thing like even bigger than we did it last year. We got these massive numbers to lap, and like, we were number 4 on the platform last year. Like, what are we going to do to make sure that happens again? And of course, we ended up, even doing a little bit better. So we did a lot of really cool things. We partnered with their brand innovation labs and had a really very integrated approach where I would say we were planning together for 4 or 5, maybe even 6 months on what this activation would look like. And it ranged from, maybe tried and true things that we knew would be successful, such as our homepage share of voice takeover, where we've done that before and it was very, very successful and brought in a lot of new to brand, new to category eyeballs and conversions, to things that were extremely splashy and, maybe a little bit outside the box or quite literally on the box, because one of the things we did was a takeover of the Amazon boxes. We actually shipped out 2 million Amazon boxes that were covered with our sugar-free variety pack launch, which is pretty cool and something that not every brand gets to say they can do. And then maybe even more splashy was our Amazon drone partnership, where we did a drone delivery stunt for surprise and delight for a handful of consumers who got to receive Liquid IV orders through a drone. And the drone was Liquid IV and Amazon branded, which is quite cool. So it's always about striking that balance for us of proven, unproven. What are we going to get smarter on? What are we going to walk away and say, hey, this worked, this didn't? And overall, we were super happy with the results and a lot smarter than we were going into it. So that's really exciting.
Incredible. I'm curious, like, obviously goal for next year has to be to do even better, right? Like, get that number 2 spot.
It never ends, exactly. We always have to be better than we were last year. And so, it's funny. We usually spend, 24 or 48 hours like in relief and saying, oh, wow, that went so well, like celebration. And then everyone immediately looks at each other and goes, oh, what are we going to do next year? And you're like, just give it a minute.
Yeah, it's like, can I have like 1 week of a break and then we can ramp back up for the next round. I am curious, something we talk a ton about here at Flywheel is just like new to brand and how important that metric is for a brand, especially on a platform like Amazon. I'm curious if Liquid IV's approach going into Prime Day was to like primarily acquire new to brand customers or kind of bring back and get purchases from existing customers. Or I'm assuming it's a mix of both, but kind of tell me your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, it's funny because obviously in any deal, you're going to say, you should ask the question to yourself, like, hey, is this incremental or am I cannibalizing some kind of sales that I have already? And maybe, it's like the age-old question of promotions, right? Like, what is effective, what isn't? But it's actually part of the reason that we love Prime Day so much is that it's such a discovery moment for people. And we saw last year over 50% new to brand on many of our placements that delivered quite a lot of revenue. And so to have half of those people not have purchased our product within the last 12 months was really, really stellar for us and really the ultimate goal. And probably even more interestingly, we measure constantly our brand awareness and household penetration. And those 48 hours can always be seen in our data as like a meaningful spike of the percentage of people in the US who have tried our product or became aware of our product. And it just goes back to like, you probably could not walk down the street leading up to Prime Day and like survey a person who did not know Prime Day was either coming up or on that day. It's just, everybody knows about it. It's become so ubiquitous and it's a place where you have to win.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think something, as we were talking about in the beginning, with just like the loyalty that Liquid IV is able to build, and the product is just such a high quality that consumers, they just keep coming back. Because a lot of times we talk about how like Prime Day and any deal event is filled with these deal seekers, but like what is the actual lifetime value of a deal seeker? Like, do they really come back to the brand? And I would assume that Liquid IV actually has some deal seekers that come in and they get hooked and they do in fact come back.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We're always looking at that data, and sometimes we can hone in on those answers a little bit sharper on something like liquidiv.com than we could on an Amazon, because of course we're a little bit more data rich on liquidiv.com. But what we tend to see is that during those tentpole moments and even during deal seeking events, those people are extremely sticky to our brand, and it's very worthwhile getting them in, to your point.
Got it. Okay. Now we're in September, and that means what month are we in? It's almost 2025. That's crazy. But we're getting close to Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Turkey 5, whatever, like industry term we all want to call it, holiday shopping. I'm curious, like, is this usually as large of an event for Liquid IV? And maybe how does your approach differ to this specific event?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And, for us, every channel has a role during these key moments. And like I mentioned at the beginning, typically where there's either a retail event or a consumer well-known shopping event, we want to show up. It's just a matter of how, where, and why. So we're upcoming on October, and we're going to have our Prime Big Deal Days coming up pretty soon. And those will be another couple of days that we'll lean in heavily and make sure that we're showing up in a really thoughtful way. And then, Black Friday, Cyber Monday is another big one for us for sure. But that's one where we like to lead a little bit more with liquidiv.com versus Amazon. And we found in the past, not always true, but we found that that's a big tech shopping moment. And to your earlier point of seasonality and being at like the peak in July and then maybe a little bit less seasonal coming into November, we like to just pick our moments and make sure that we're not oversaturating ourselves. So liquidiv.com will really lead there. We'll also have some exciting stuff on TikTok Shop likely.
Ooh, exciting. Amazing. Okay. I'm going to start bringing us into some of the wrap up questions, but I'm kind of curious, as someone leading the charge for Liquid IV, what are you looking forward to when you look at the future of the brand and its digital growth?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's funny because you asked me that question a year ago. It's completely different than it would be today. I feel like our industry is just rapidly evolving, and I feel like every day with GPT and everything that's changing in AI, and then also the platforms and our partnerships, it's pretty hard to believe where we're going to be in the next year or two in terms of capabilities, technologies, and consumer shopping experiences. So really, at the end of the day, I think for us, just maintaining that innovative culture and being on the forefront of innovative hydration specifically, and meeting our consumers where they are and where they're going is going to be like the unambiguous underlying truth of where we need to kind of show up. And that's, like I mentioned at the beginning, something that we're always kind of debating internally of where do we want to be and why, and what risks we're willing to take versus not. And hence why we tend to lean on the side of jumping in and seeing what happens. So continuing to adapt and keep up with the fast pace of culture is going to be like the most important thing you see from us next year. And that innovative pace of creative and jumping onto culture, being a part of culture in a really authentic and meaningful way is something you're going to see from us even more next year than this year.
For sure. And I feel like especially as you continue to kind of grow on like TikTok Shop, for example, you have to be part of pop culture if that's going to be your strategy. And you're a brand that seems like it really can kind of just seamlessly integrate itself into pop culture and maybe even create moments of pop culture as well.
You're exactly right. It's the power of content. And it's funny, TikTok Shop, a lot has changed, but at the same time, nothing has changed, right? Like TikTok is ultimately a content platform, right? And so at the end of the day, it's not just about like putting up your storefront and saying, hey, here we are. It's about, hey, how do we have something meaningful that's worth talking about and being buzzworthy? And so, and we're pretty good at that.
Perfect. Okay, I have 2 more questions for you, and they're just fun ones. I need to know your favorite Liquid IV flavor.
Yeah, so once again, things have changed.
And you've grown. You've grown as a person.
I've grown. Yeah, I used to be one of the very classic, reliable lemon lime folks, which there's many of them out there. It's one of our best flavors. But recently, with the Firecracker Popsicle launch that we had, it's taken number 1 by a landslide. So I'm a huge fan of that flavor. I think we absolutely nailed it. It's just so good, so refreshing, and takes me way back to the 90s. So that's always fun too.
Oh, the way you guys played into nostalgia there, like I forgot about that popsicle, and then I'm instantly transported back to the ice cream truck coming down the road, and I gotta go get my popsicle.
Yeah, it's right there. So yeah, no, I love that.
Amazing. Okay. The very last question I have for you is I would love to know, and we ask this to everyone as well, just something that lives on your digital wish list, which means it just lives in a cart forever and ever, and you won't actually purchase it. And of course, I will ask why.
Well, I do have this one that I want. It's very specific, super niche, but it's the new Garmin watch that I've been definitely eyeing for quite some time. So, and you're going to ask me, why haven't you bought it, Aaron? It's because I already have a Garmin watch, and so I've got one, and it's perfectly fine, and there's no reason for me to have another one. But the new one has like solar power, which is so cool, and so yeah, I definitely will eventually get it. But I'm kind of waiting for my current Garmin to wear out, which probably won't hold my breath for that because it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, those things last for a long time. They can take some damage before they give up, which is
Exactly.
a great element of a product. But it's like, hey, I want the new one.
Exactly. I want an excuse. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, I think that is everything. And thank you so much for your time. This was fun.
It was. No, thank you, Emma. I really appreciate it. And it was great getting to chat with you.
And that, my friends, wraps up another episode of the Commerce Collective podcast. How cool was that? Thank you to Aaron and the team at Liquid IV for such an insightful conversation. I have been your host, Emma Irwin, and if you enjoyed this, share it with your ecom friends. And we will see you next time.